One of Splatoon 2's most notable strengths is the amount of weapons and variety that you have in the game, and what with Splatoon 3, let's be honest, we're expecting even more. So today, I wanted to come up with a brand new weapon for every single class. This would be a brush, roller, shooter, dually, brella, slosher, splatling, charger, blaster, and even the new bow. These are the 10 weapon classes we know are in Splatoon 3, and it took a lot of time to come up with original ideas for all of them. So if you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing or liking the videos, it helps me out a lot. Without further ado, let's get right into it. First, let's start with the most neglected class, the brushes. We're going to be finally giving them the third variant known as the Deca Brush. This is a heavy variant with good paint and amazing close range damage that's made primarily for mid-range support. And well, it'll be kind of similar to the Dynamo of brushes. So first off, let's talk about the rolling. This would have a bump damage of 30, the highest out of any of the classes, and it would start just barely slower than Octobrush with a bit of a thicker trail and not as bad ink consumption. However, with the amount of paint and range it has, this amount of mobility would be too good. So instead it's on a time limit, and after 3 seconds, it'll slow down dramatically. This will make it slightly faster than Roller's rolling speed, and it'll use an entire 15% of the ink tank per second. However, if you stop rolling for a whole second, this will be reset, so it's something you could definitely play around. And finally, while we're talking about its speed, considering it's a heavy version, this is in fact a heavyweight weapon. Secondly, let's get on to flicking. This looks like a sling animation, and it takes 20 frames. Basically, you get 3 flicks every second. When flicking, the actual brush itself is a hitbox, which reaches an entire line of range and does 70 damage. The fling launches ink about 3.5 lines of range away and does 45 damage, which also paints very well. This means you could do things like comboing the hilt of the brush with the ink itself being flung after to do 100 damage and kill in 2 shots. However, again, this requires you to get extremely up close or else you would kill in a very slow 3-shot. Worth noting that the brush and the ink that comes out of it cannot hit at the same time. You would only be doing the 70 damage max. However, the big weakness of this weapon is ink consumption. Every flick will use 10% of your ink tank, giving you, as the weapon name implies, 10 shots. There's no delay to recover your ink after firing though, so you can get back pretty fast. While slow and ink hungry, this weapon puts out a lot of pressure at a distance and can defend itself very well in close range, giving it some nice utility. Based off of the single player enemies, this is the Commander Splatling, based off of course the Octo Commander, which becomes more powerful as it fires. A full charge consumes 30% of this weapon's tank and is a heavyweight, with paint very similar to heavies. The gimmick of this weapon is that the first charge is actually the faster one, only taking 25 frames, while the second ring takes 60 frames, different than every other Splatling. The mobility is very similar to heavy. The first ring would shoot 1 shot every 6 frames. For reference, heavy is 4. While that quick charge may seem crazy, it only shoots for 50 frames and does 24 damage, making it a 5-shot kill. On the bright side though, it's very fast, as a little bit faster than heavy, and has no jump spread. This is a quick mode that, while it's not super powerful, is great for keeping people off you. The second mode, however, has the most range out of any of the Splatlings. This goes the same as Splat Chargers and fires 1 shot every 5 frames, doing 32 damage. So it's really powerful and has a long range, once again not having any jump spread. It would also shoot for slightly longer at 60 frames, though still not as long as heavy, and the movement speed would be set to 0.5 units per frame, so a little bit slower. I feel like the most comparable Splatling here is Ballpoint, with the 2 modes of firing, but these are very short ones. You don't get to shoot for as long a time as other Splatlings, and the ring charging is very different. So I think this would take a lot of time to get used to, and it's hard to say how good it would be, but I think it's interesting to give it those insane tools at the cost of less firing time, and see how well that plays out. Multiple firing modes is really useful for adaptability, and maybe Splatling shouldn't be the only one to enjoy that kind of perk, so this is a brand new dually, with multiple dodge rolls that is made to adapt to many situations. This has a fire rate of 1 per 6 frames, regular dualies is 5, and it has the same ink consumption and paint output. However, its range is slightly less than Splash, and it does 32 damage per shot, a little bit more than dually. This is also a lightweight weapon. While the standard fire isn't anything exceptional outside of paint and damage being solid, but not as good as the other dualies, it's the rolls where this thing really stands out. This dually has 2 different dodge rolls, one for holding the joystick and one for tapping it with the B button. A tap dodge roll would count as 1 use, and a hold dodge roll would count as 2, and you have 3 uses before you get stuck in end lag. Final roll has 35 frames of end lag, while regular dualies is 32, so it's very similar. The tap dodge roll, while just as fast as Dapple, goes 5% farther, and its turret mode does 40 damage per shot. However, its fire rate is 1 frame slower than Dapple's, but it comes with 5% more range and about the same paint. However, if you need to get some distance, the hold dodge roll goes 5% farther than Glooga, making it the farthest range dodge roll in the game, and it fires one shot every 13 frames, Glooga being 9. However, each shot does 65 damage, and it paints 25% better than Glooga. This dually is meant to be versatile. The standard fire mode has solid paint, the tap dodge roll is good in close range, and the hold dodge roll is better in long range and for poke damage. Everything has some form of use, even if it's not as good as some of the dualies they're based off of. The versatility is really what makes this weapon stand out and be a notable threat. Let's take a little bit of a break from the multiple firing modes idea and add to a class that desperately needs more than 3 weapons, the Brellas. Introducing the Reflectella, an incredibly weak Brella that focuses on being able to parry shots the other way instead of just plainly shielding, built to be an incredibly powerful support weapon. Before we get into the shield, it has a fairly normal standard fire, taking 6 frames to shoot while Brella is 8. The damage is incredibly weak at 9.5 per pellet with a maximum of 45 damage, shooting 5 pellets. The weapon does have a little bit more range though, being the same as Mini compared to the other Brellas, and the shots take 3.3% of the ink tank and paint the same as Undercover. And of course, this is a lightweight weapon. About the shield itself, first of all, it's entirely see-through compared to the other Brella shields, and it takes 0.25 seconds to open, Brella being 0.2, and it only stays up for a maximum of half a second. It's also the weakest shield in the game, only having 100 health. Holding up the shield for its full duration takes 5% of your ink tank, and there's no shield launch. Alright, onto the parrying mechanic. If you manage to block something in the short time your shield is up, it'll send it back the exact opposite direction it was shot at you, having the same damage, shot speed, etc. This would also come with a small little push animation, as if you were opening an umbrella. If the damage you reflected is strong enough to break the shield, it'll regenerate in just 2 seconds, but if you block absolutely nothing, the shield will regenerate in 6 seconds. And of course, if you happen to reflect something weak enough to not do 100 damage, the shield will just be fine. I think a reflector could be really cool, and while the main weapon and shield would have to be extremely weak to make it balanced, it could be really interesting, and paired with a good amount of painting capability could make an amazing support, which is perfect for Brellas. Versatility is a bit of a theme here, and the next weapon in the shooter class is going to exemplify that even more. Based a little bit off the Squeezer, this is the Arrow Shot, a shooter with 2 different modes of fire. However, unlike Squeezer, this will work based on if you're in the ground, which gives you a burst fire mode, or in the air, which fires like a normal shooter. Its standard fire mode has the same fire rate as Splattershot Pro, but it's much more ink hungry than the base Splattershot. The shots do 45 damage, making it a 3-hit kill. It has mini range and paints a little bit better, and has RNG similar to 52. This is a middleweight weapon, by the way. Fairly average stats for a shooter, just a little bit more ink hungry. Once grounded, the weapon acts like a semi-automatic, having the same range of 96 and a delay of 14 frames between bursts, which is just in the middle of L3 and H3. However, this is perfect accuracy, and it shoots 5 bullets at the same fire rate of Aerospray, doing 23 damage per shot, and of course 1 burst would have a sound effect. This also paints 10% better than 96, but it uses 12% of the ink tank for each burst, being almost double that of H3. Basically, in the air, this is your standard shooter, and on the ground, this is the hardest of the semi-automatics, an interesting hybrid of the classes, very penalizing with the ink efficiency and having to hit an entire 5 shots. I think it's a pretty interesting idea to blend the mix of a shooter and a semi-automatic into one. And that's the first half of my ideas for a new weapon in every class. A lot of these focused on multiple firing modes or unique gimmicks, but the next set of weapons will have some even crazier ideas, so I hope you guys are looking forward to it, and I'll see you all in the next video.